What up, and welcome back to another Malazan Book of the Fallen video. This is the second half of our Unabridged Burners unscripted conversation, and this time we're picking up where we left off. We had just finished talking about characterization in Malazan, and then I tee up this second episode with a discussion of the impact of spoilers and spoiler sensitivity. There is spoilers throughout this video, but we get a lot more into the meat of the books instead of about us and the channel, and it was a lot of fun. Make sure you get out there and subscribe to these channels and show them some love. It's the best content on YouTube. So with that, I hope you enjoy.
What about spoilers? So there's this guy, I want to get your guys' take on this because and I definitely try and be respectful of spoilers in my chapter by chapter stuff to delineate when people need to get out. But this guy, and I forget the name of the guy, I posted it in the Discord, but he had a great post about spoilers and how which I totally agreed with, but to kind of do a terrible job of paraphrasing, he said, the it's not in this big climactic moment, that makes the story. And so by finding out the destination, we don't want to tell people the ultimate destination. I think that's what made the synopsis challenge so hard. Making a synopsis for Malazan is actually super easy. If you could do a spoiler one, you could do it right off the bat and have a perfect 35, 45 second synopsis. But what do you guys think about? I think it kind of misses the point for me. And I know that we're just kind of programmed as readers to, it's about finding out what happened or whatever, but for me it's so not the point. And so I think people's hypersensitivity to spoilers as it relates to Malazan is kind of overblown a little bit. But I'm curious to know, and I know the High Fist has a pure all spoilers channel and is only for Malazan veterans. So but I wonder what he thinks about the newbies, even like how big of a deal, because I remember reading and there was no Discord and I didn't know about the Facebook group and all that stuff, and like I spoiled myself a bunch of times, and like I'd be hard pressed to even tell you what I remember getting that I got spoiled on things, but I don't even remember what those were. And it wasn't really of any consequence and didn't diminish my enjoyment of the series. And just, by virtue of how many people go back and reread, I think is a testament to how knowing what happens doesn't ruin it. But I'm curious to know what, to hear you guys rant about spoiler sensitivity and Malazan and all that.
Yeah, I completely agree. In general, I'm somebody whose reading experience usually isn't ruined by spoilers. So, and with Malazan, I spoiled myself for pretty much everything. Like most of the death scenes and major events I actually know beforehand. Because the thing is, when I really, really like a book, then I want to know what happens in the end. And then I just can't contain myself. I need to take a peek at the ending. And that is actually a compliment to a book when I feel the need to do that. So I personally never had the feeling that already knowing what was going to happen ruined my experience at all. And I've heard somebody say, I think it was a booktuber actually, that if a spoiler ruins a book for you, then it is probably not a very good book. And I agree. I mean, an exception is probably like mystery, something like that, when you already know who the murderer is.
Right.
That's something different probably. But yeah, I don't think the Malazan experience is ruined by spoilers for me. However, I know that for many people, spoilers ruin their reading experience. So I think it's super important to be respectful of that and tell people when you're going to talk about spoilers and make it clear if a video is going to be spoiler free or not. So yeah.
I know you have strong feelings, Mr. High Fist. What do you think about the whole spoiler? I know you will always have pure spoilers, and our collabs will always be pure spoiler ridden. But what do you think about people who are kind of over obsessed? Because I always say it's like a journey, not a destination series. But maybe you could probably say it more eloquently than I could.
I'll try. I will try. By the way, for those of you who are here who haven't finished the series yet. Anamander Rake dies, and the Crippled God is the one we are here to save, right? So
the damsel in distress, you call them.
With that being said, let me just share a theory that I have. This is simply based on my own observations. I don't have concrete evidence for this. But what I've noticed in the Discord server and in speaking to a lot of people at this point who've gone through the series, who've kind of read the series, those who are not too worried about spoilers tend to be able to finish the series pretty easily. And almost all the ones that I know who abandoned the series were the ones who were extremely fussy and anal about spoilers. Because when you think about it, if we go with the journey and not destination analogy that you keep bringing up, Ishka, if you're someone who wants to stay true to that way of thinking, then spoilers are not really a concern for you because you're more interested in the journey and not the destination. And these people, I find, tend to kind of finish the series in one go and enjoy it as well as they go. The ones that, once again, it's not like we have a big sample size. This is just based on personal observations. And when you think about it logically, I think it makes sense as well. If you're worried, firstly, in answer to your question, I don't think spoilers will ruin your experience, right? This is not that kind of a story. But on the other hand, please keep in mind that if you're the type of person who doesn't like spoilers in general, while there are many who manage to finish the series because they have willpower and determination and all that, it will be harder for you to get through the 10 books if you're worried about spoilers. Because you know something, there were moments where I was so glad that I was spoiled, because if not, I would have had no idea what the fuck was going on. Right? Sometimes being spoiled is good because you know you can follow the events on the page. While if you have no spoilers, you're just as confused as you're supposed to be. So perhaps being spoiled is not such a bad thing, Ishka, to put it in a subtle way. If that was...
I totally agree. And some of the stuff isn't like, I don't know, I love Erickson's writing and stuff, but you know, stuff like the Whiskey Jack, you know, death, I think is one where you can kind of see that one coming a mile away, right? You don't keep talking about that knee over and over again just to hang it out there and then not do anything with it too. So that's like one of the ones where it's like, yeah, that would suck to know while you're still in chapter 1 of Memories of Ice that Whiskey Jack is going to die. But then again, like they've already said 10 times how Mallet's not going to heal his knee or hasn't got time to do it by then too. So it's like, you know, it doesn't totally ruin it for me, I think.
I mean, I think often the way that it's done makes it worth it. The way that it's done makes it worth. Just look at the rake scene, right? Even if you know, even if you find out about that on your second book or your third book, by the time you get to the 8th book, the Anamander rake scene will sort of, to give him props for a change, that scene will give you chills, right? That scene is that entire sort of climax, and Rake's death and him entering Dragnipur and things like that. That is epic fantasy and just literature at its finest. And I don't think that would be ruined in any way if you read on some forum or some Discord server that Rake dies. I don't think that takes anything away from what actually happens.
Yeah, I agree. So I read about Rake's death. So we're allowed to spoil things now, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I think I was looking up some stuff about warrants in the wiki while I was reading the first half of Deadhouse Gates. And I think I read the article about Bauchelain. And that's where I stumbled across his death. And I was so mad because remember, back then, that was when my Rake obsession had started, and
at peak Rake.
It was like one of the main reasons why I continued. Then I started Deadhouse Gates, and I was pissed that he's not in the book. Then I did some research, and then I read that he dies. I was so mad. I ranted at my computer for like 5 minutes, but now in retrospect, I think it was good that I knew it was going to happen, because Toll the Hounds makes a lot more sense when you know what it's kind of building up towards, and especially the Tistandi parts. And I don't think that me already knowing what was going to happen diminished the experience, not at all. It was still pretty emotional and intense for me. And yeah, I already knew what was expecting me, so I could mentally prepare. And actually, I think probably the only major character death I was not spoiled on was Tralsangar. And that comes as a surprise, right? That is like one of the death scenes you cannot see coming because it's not foreshadowed. And when I read that, I was so shocked because I really could not believe that Tral really died like that.
And so meaningless too, and just so after all the, you know, that one is,
it was pointless. It was so, as you said, meaningless, and that was what made it so painful. Why, after the standoff with Icarium, the standoff with Silch's Ruin, the standoff with the Folklore Assail, this man has fought defending the Throne of Shadow. After all that, he dies this way.
I know, he's like excommunicated. He comes back into the fight. I mean, dude, that guy, you know, he gives Talk the Younger a run for his money in terms of suffering, right?
Yeah, and I mean, he didn't stop fighting for things he believed in, or didn't ever stop supporting the people he cares about, like Onrak, of course. And then he still came back to try and make peace with his brother, despite what Rula did to him. So I feel like Tral is really such a good person at heart, and
unwitnessed.
Didn't deserve that. Yeah,
Ishka, I was just going to say, but let's not get too carried away with the Talk the Younger comparisons here. Nothing that Tral went through is anything close to a giant lizard breaking your bones, mending them, licking you shit, and it licks it licks you clean, and you're just being tortured by this giant obese lizard. That is, come on.
Yeah, while you're saying that, what I'm going to do in the post-production is I'm going to overlay my Talk the Younger GIF where it's like the kid running over his brother with the bike or whatever, because that is the epitome of you know, peak talk. Well, since you guys brought up Troll, and I also brought up the next books, do you think we're going to see that baby, or like maybe a baby Coltane, or what's up with the next generation of Malazan in the Karsa books? You think we'll see any of that stuff? And also, I'm curious, just if you have any predictions. I want to see Ganos. I wonder what happened with Tavor. Is there going to be any kind of interaction with the Empire, you think?
So do you mean in the Witness trilogy?
Yes,
specifically?
Witness, yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, what Erickson has said is that the first two will deal with the consequences of Karsa's actions, and that Karsa himself might appear only in the third book. So let's look at the things that they might have to unpack here. So Karsa left a huge impact on the Tis Tidur. So we might see that being wrapped up. He's in Darujistan now, and he has his friend Torval Nom living there as well. So in terms of recurring characters, I have a feeling that if anything, they might just be subtle, and the ones who are returning would be the proper Karsa Orlong storyline characters like Samardev and some of those, right? I was kind of excited when I thought that the painting that Erickson did might be a Folklore Assail, but the two of you just squished on my heart and broke it. You shot that theory down in a matter of seconds. So because Karsa has the encounter with Calm, and one of the things that I should have mentioned in my Karsa video, but that I didn't, was that Calm destroys Karsa's sort of companion the first time they meet, and then it's a Toblakai who's Karsa's first follower, so to speak, who's the one who finally kills Calm, right? Calm kills Karsa's first follower in his first incarnation, and Karsa's first follower in his kind of second incarnation, Ublalapang, is the one who kills Calm in the end.
I'm curious what you think about Ublala, because how's that? He's supposed to be out building an army and all that, but then also He's kind of like the nameless one's guardian person for the time being. So what's up with that?
Yeah, I think it would be interesting if Ikariam is going to show up together with Ublala, maybe. And I mean, imagine Karsa and Ikariam on one continent. That's going to be interesting.
And remember, he has already promised that he will yield. He has already promised that when the time comes, he will sort of accede to Karsa's authority. And Karsa even says, I will hold you to your word. And Ikariam says, how can I do anything but stick to my word?
What about the dog? Do you think the dog's going to show up? Because I think the kids are going to be a big part of have you guys read the prologue that he posted, I'm guessing? Yeah.
No.
I think I'm not quite sure if I actually did. And if I did, it's been a while.
I'll go post it in the Discord after we get off here, but you can read the prologue for Witness on his website, I think. And it's kind of the I don't want to call it as like high priestess or whatever, but it's like the people basically back at, all the Teblors back at home that are kind of like, and I think the kids have come back and they're all kind of, it's almost like a town hall type thing where they're discussing what, how to proceed and stuff. So it's going to be pretty badass.
Is Karsa's father there?
Karsa's father was not in the prologue. I think it was it was like a new character, like a chick who is kind of like the, I don't know, town
because
elder.
In their last scene together, Karsa's father tells Karsa's grandfather, we're never going to see him again. Because his grandfather says he's going to come back, you were a failure, blah, blah, blah. And Karsa's dad just says, you idiot. Neither of us are ever going to see him again.
That is, I forget who it was. I think it was the Watch in the Discord, but that would be a really cool video. He talks about the whole, dad, grandpa as symbols for kind of the, schools of thought, basically. And that's actually really deep. It's such a short part of that beginning of House of Chains, but that's really deep stuff that like kind of, and the interactions with Karsa, right? Because, he's revering the grandpa and thinking his dad's a loser and whatever, and then like he basically, and the dad's kind of self-assured and self-confident and is like, you'll learn kind of thing, but he goes out and ends up like totally turning his grandpa's conventional wisdom or having that go out the window, basically. I just think that's a whole really interesting dynamic.
He tells Samardev later on that his grandfather was a fool and that his father was the only true intelligent man among the Teblor.
That's why, even though Karsa, I'm not a huge Karsa fan, but that arc, you can't deny that arc of development, and because he kind of has that same like terrifying moral clarity at the beginning, right? That you talked about in the Forkroll Assail video, but then like by the end, he's much more, wouldn't say smooth edges, but he's definitely changed.
What do you think, Counselor? What's your take on Karsa?
So I think what you definitely notice with Karsa is that he is thinking a lot more, because in the beginning, Karsa just seems, he basically smashes and then doesn't think. And now he kind of, or maybe that's a little too overgeneralized, but maybe you know what I mean. And now he kind of thinks before he smashes, kind of. And I still need to reread all the Hounds. So I feel like I don't really want to give a final impression of Karsa right now. But like what has really been sticking out to me is when he says to Samar that he still has to learn a lot about women, and that is going to be a journey that he's going to enjoy. So first of all, he has been learning a lot since the beginning of House of Chains, but he is also able to acknowledge that he doesn't know everything yet and that he still has development ahead of him. And I mean, House of Chains Karsa would have probably never admitted that, or beginning of House of Chains Karsa. And so I think that's like one point where you can really see his development. And yeah, I don't know. I'm having a hard time voicing my thoughts about Karsa. I'm sorry.
No, he's a
No, it's,
challenging
I
character.
think Reaper's Gale is his best book, though.
Yeah. I love Reaper's Gale. That's like one of my personal favorite books. I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff and the big questions that you talked about in some of your videos. You've both gone pretty deep on Reaper's Gale recently, and it's been so much fun. And I know Cal, I think that's Cal's favorite book. I think that a lot of people, the real diehards for some reason, love Reaper's Gale. I think, Counselor, you said that it's actually climbed up the ranks even after this reread too, right? That you have more of an affinity for Reaper's Gale now than you did before.
Definitely. So I wouldn't say it's a favorite right now, simply because when it comes to reading pleasure, it was kind of one of those installments that is a little bit more work to read. You kind of have to chew it a little bit more. But from a thematic perspective, it's pretty rewarding. And also what I just remembered about Karsa, you can also notice that he has more learned to kind of feel compassion for others. For example, when those imprisoned Edur are released, he is not happy about that. And then he thinks, how can the Edur or the Letheri call him the barbarian when they basically imprison those poor people just because they have failed in their opinion, and he's totally not okay with that. So, and I mean, he's right.
Yeah.
That's not okay.
It's crazy because, you know, when you talk about, like, I love that conversation about, you know, his disgust with how like cold and calculating and efficient and all that. And it's weird because like in Malazan, it's almost like a meritocracy, you know, so like the bloodlines don't really, you know, the nobles are always like, there is nobles there and stuff, but they're not really a huge player in that empire. And it seems like in Lether too, it was more you know, merit based. But what the sad part about having a meritocracy instead of just like a handed down kind of like patriarchy is like the bad guys are like really good at it. You know what I mean? Because they're just like the best ones, and they see, you know, that they're in that position of being able to be bad because they're the ones who are actually the best at it.
You know, I just had a thought. Who are the people who bring the Empire of Lether down in the end? Of course, we have Tehol, who is sabotaging the whole economy, and then we have Karsa, who kills the Emperor. And those are the two people who do not care about money at all.
Yeah.
And they are like the ones who bring down the empire that is ruled by money. So I never really thought about that, but it makes sense, right?
Yeah, no, definitely.
I wish I was the one who thought of that now. But I wish I was the one who had sort of come up with that. That's a really good observation.
I never was gonna. I made my like joking video for the tournament about an economic, you know, analysis, but I think I might actually make an economics video about the Midnight Tides storyline, just because that one is, you know, I think it's interesting because there's also like a lot of parallels to the financial crisis of 12 years ago too, that would be really interesting. Plus I just want to make the kind of thumbnail using the movie poster from The Big Short, and I'm going to call it The Bug Short. So how long have we been on? Are you guys, I mean, the High Fist must be almost falling asleep now. It's like 11 o'clock at night.
You underestimate me, Iskar. What else? Should we do a quick sort of take on some of our sort of favorite characters or people who we think are overrated? I mean, come on, whom do you guys think is the most overrated character? I put myself out there. I risked my reputation by sort of picking Anamander Rake for that. So whom would you guys say is the most overrated one?
I think they're all rated, but I think they're rated pretty high on purpose. Let me think. I can't even think who are the super high rated characters. I mean, I'm not a Karsa fan. I'm not a ride or die Karsa. I enjoy that storyline, but still, it's hard to even with the the perspective that of his kind of sheltered upbringing and his dynamics with his grandpa and stuff. Still, some of that stuff at the beginning of House of Chains is hard to forgive, right?
But do you think he's overrated?
I don't think he's overrated. No, I think he's no, I think he's an amazing character, and the storyline is the bomb. I think maybe he's over revered though. Like there's some people who are really ride or die Karsa is the best ever, like him as a person, kind of like not just like his storyline. So that would be one for me, and then maybe I can punt and let the counselor come up with one, and I'll think of another one.
I can't really think of a character who's overrated, honestly. Or maybe I will think of one once we're done with this conversation. I don't know. I think maybe I can name a storyline. So I am not saying that storyline is overrated. It's just I am not like the biggest fan of the Chain of Dogs storyline. And that's just a matter of personal taste. So
how dare you?
I'm not saying it is overrated. I'm going to say that again. And I totally get why people like it. I think it's executed really well. And the ending is really, really emotional and well done. The thing is that I personally don't really like storylines where an army is kind of traveling. And yeah, I mean, there are a few storylines in Malazan where that's the case, but somehow I kind of always found that the Chain of Dogs is the storyline I like the least in Deadhouse Gates. That doesn't mean that I don't like it. It just, yeah.
But you think it's overrated?
I'm gonna be toast now.
I'm ending this collaboration right now, so we're shutting it down.
Oh God.
No, I'm kidding.
It's all a matter of perspective, guys. When I'm saying that a Malazan storyline is not my favorite, that still means it's good, right? So
no, agreed.
Yeah, I mean, I know that it's many people's favorite storyline, and it's often mentioned as like one of the best storylines in the series, but it's just not my personal favorite. Just
Guys,
because I don't like this continuous fighting and yeah. Okay. Ruthan hates me now. I'm so sorry, guys.
I did come up with another one, and this one I've floated in the Discord before, but and this one is risky because this is one of my favorite characters. I think I'm already on the record saying that, and you can go back and watch my top 10 characters, which I don't think I had Animander Rake on there, did I? I don't remember, but I know this one was on there, and it's Ganos Perrin, and I think there's kind of an analogy there, and and again, I'm a huge Ganos Perrin fan, but I think specifically in relation to Tavor, right? Because even if you go back to the very earliest books, when he goes back to Unta, he's kind of deferential, or he recognizes her skills and smarts and whatever. When he thinks about what's happened with Fellison, he goes, you know what, actually, I'm not even going to worry. I know Tavor will take care of that and would have done like a better job. So he always is like kind of looking up to and respecting. There's a mutual respect there, even though they never like got along necessarily like friendship wise. But even he kind of defers her as being like the better, the smarter, the more capable, the whatever. And yet, if you look at the fandom, Ganos has like the cool magical powers and stuff, and like kind of is more front and center in the storyline. You get internal perspective versus like you don't really know shit about Tavor till the very end. But as a result of that, he's like this revered fan favorite character, and people like still, can never give or forgive you know, Tavor for what she did to Felisin and stuff like that. And so I would say that relative to Tavor, Ganos is overrated by his own kind of admission. And so nothing to disparage Ganos. I love him to death too, but I think that's one for sure where he's, you know, he has way too many fans relative to her. She deserves a lot.
So we have Rake, Ganos, and Coltane. Those are our 3 picks.
So I think those are
I didn't
pretty
say Coltane
controversial.
is overrated.
No.
I did not.
Coltane, Rake, Coltane, and Ganos Paran. Those are the 3 picks, guys.
What about underrated? Because I already put out my Lysine video, and I think she's an underrated character that it's easy to kind of bestow all your frustration and anger and all that stuff onto her as the kind of scapegoat for that. But I think she's got a really complex, interesting storyline, even with all of her mistakes and shenanigans. But who do you think is kind of an underrated character?
I think Silch's Ruin is a little underrated in comparison to his brother. So he's like also one of my absolute favorite characters, and I feel like I haven't really seen him in favorite character lists that often, whereas Anomander Rake does appear on those lists quite often. And I think just from a standpoint of how interesting a character is and how morally gray and how much depth he has, Silch's is the better character. So I'm not saying that that means that I don't like Anomander, but Anomander kind of has a different purpose as a character. He is kind of this presence and that you're in awe of. I know Ruthan doesn't agree here with me, but I think just the delivery of the character of Rake is spot on. But just when it comes to character depth, Silch's is more interesting because he's a good guy deep down, but he also sometimes still appears as cruel and draconic kind of, but then he has this very vulnerable side to him that we kind of see in Dust of Dreams. And I've read about some people complaining that he basically turns into a crybaby, and I was so mad when I read that. But really after all he's gone through, and then he learns that his brother died. I mean, isn't that a reason to be sad? And also then when he meets Tulas in the Crippled God, we suddenly realize that he has a great sense of humor as well. And I think honestly of all the Tistandi, he is like really the only one who has a proper sense of humor, and I really love that about him. You also could kind of see that in Kharkanas a little bit. For example, in that little scene with Skabandari that I just thought was absolutely hilarious. And so, yeah, I think Silch's deserves more recognition as a great character.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to see that gap get filled in, right? Because we go, you know, I'm so curious to see how we go from that scene with him and Skara in Kharkanas to the kind of, I forget what book it's in, but the, you know, after the Skykeep battle and the backstabbing and all that, it's like, what the hell, you know, what happened?
What happened here? I mean, you can really see what the draconic blood did, right? Because from that one scene in Kharkanas, it just doesn't seem likely that they're gonna go after each other, even though the foreshadowing was pretty cool with Silch's basically, you know, yeah, touching Scar's shoulder, and then he just flinches. And yeah, it's also similar with the brothers Dark. It's also mentioned that Anomander and Silch's were kind of driven apart after they became soul-taken dragons, and Andaris was the one who was trying to keep them together, but he just couldn't. And that's also the impression that I had in Kharkanas, that the three of them work great as long as they are together, basically. When one of them is gone, then their unity kind of breaks apart. And Andaris, to me, kind of was the heart of the brothers. And now the heart is broken. So their relationship overall is going to break as well, because Andaris cannot hold them together anymore. So I've been digressing a lot. We were talking about underrated characters, but
no,
yeah.
That's interesting. I wonder, like, because if Rake's the brain and Andaris is the heart, then what is Silchas?
I mean, listen, guys. Once again, I think that's a sort of when we say Silchus Ruin has a better, has a sense of humor. Yes. Once again, yes. In comparison to the T standee, yes, but we're still stretching the definition of sense of humor, right? When we sort of reward him with that. Trait. I also like how much of a T standee fan Oxen is. Who's your favorite character? Anamander Rake. Who's the most underrated character? Silchus Ruin. Right?
Who's the cutest character? Nymander.
Oh yeah. Oh, don't
Which
don't even
female
get me
character
started.
do you identify with? Corlad. Okay. Well, yeah, not quite, but I like her too, by the way.
Yeah, I'd aspire to be like Corlad. I don't think I could ever pull it off. What about you, Ruthan Bad? Who's your underrated character? Is it one of your Janath or somebody, or is it somebody that we haven't heard about from you yet?
Somebody that you haven't heard about me yet, but the sort of the old school members of the Discord channel might know this. Leoman of the Flails.
Mm.
So someone who is sort of often, I think Graceless even has a video where he puts Leoman as part of his most hated characters list. So I'm not here to give him a moral certificate,
Sure.
but as far
Good.
as military strategy goes, what Leoman does is essentially unparalleled. Tavo is such a genius that by the 10th book, even the pure blood folk rule Assail start talking to themselves and they start saying, this has got to be some military commander on a level that we haven't expected, blah, 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 right? So Tavo is already established as this military genius. Paran even talks about, I think Ganos Paran even talks about how when she was a child, her father would bring in the best generals and have these little simulations with them. And she would just beat them as a child. And yet, who is the one person who consistently outmaneuvers her as far as military strategy goes? Leoman of the Flails is the only one. It isn't just the Yucatan explosion. A lot of people forget this. If you go back to House of Chains, there's a very good scene where Felicin the Older is speaking to her sort of her generals, so to speak. And Leoric and another guy explain the difference between cold iron and hot iron to her. And they say, Felicin's hot iron. All of Felicin's commanders are hot iron. Tavor is cold iron. And cold iron, 9 out of 10 times or whatever, wins out. And Felicin goes, oh shit, but because before this, she was like, Leoman's an idiot. He's probably just doped up. He's probably just drugged up. And she was like, do we have nobody who's cold iron? And they say, yes, we do. Who is it? Leoman of the Flails. And Leoman is then sent out to harass the incoming army in order to slow down their approach. And he does it. He successfully slows down their approach. He successfully retreats. And in the end, I mean, so I will do a video on the use of human shields and sort of the whole Siege of Yucatan thing, because the use of civilians as a part of your warfare strategy is a pretty widespread practice that we see. But just in terms of effectiveness, while we might not like what he did from a moral perspective, that has to be the single greatest piece of military strategy in the entire series. And to me, he is the best strategist because he keeps beating Tavo. That's the only reason.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, because, you know, that's kind of like our bridge burners getting forged there too. And it's kind of, it parallels that, because the bridge burners were forged by getting their ass kicked in Raraku too, more or less by Quick Ben and Callum and getting double crossed and all of that stuff. So I think that's a great underrated one, and controversial, because I hate Leoman, man. He's just scumbag to do that to my people. Yeah, he God, I will say, somebody did, if you go back and watch my Deadhouse Gates casting video, somebody commented and appreciated that I had Leomans casted in front of like that big old cellar full of olive oil. So I thought that was I was glad that somebody appreciated that. Well, cool. We did most underrated, we did favorite. Yeah, we did a lot. I think this was super fun. I think next time what I want to put out there as a homework assignment for us is I want to get into the meat of some of the really big enigmas of the series. So maybe next time we can come with some quick Ben stuff. We can talk about the Azath. I think that would be fun. I want to talk about Krull and Krull's blood and the Warrens and stuff. I think that would be super cool. And honestly, I'll be happy to talk to you guys about whatever you're willing to come onto the channel and talk about. So I'll leave you with an open invite to come back anytime, and I hope you will.
Yeah,
Thank you.
definitely.
All right, cool. Well, hey, thank you guys so much for watching. Again, I'm going to be super mad at the community if this video doesn't result in them having at least as many subscribers as views on this video. They're making better stuff than any Malazan fan could ever hope to be able to consume. And if you don't subscribe, you're only cheating yourself. So we'll leave it there. Join the Discord, and we'll just keep the conversation going. We can like and subscribe this video, but more importantly, like and subscribe to their videos. And until next time, happy reading. I'm going to keep it recording until we hang up, just in case there's more good stuff to splice in as we say goodbye.
Okay, so when do we say goodbye then? Because we can just keep going on with the good stuff.
I know. Well,
I'm not going to let that chain of dogs thing go, Oxen.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I probably made myself so unpopular with that.
No.
Weapon.
No way. I think you're.
But I mean, you have to appreciate that there's a difference between saying something is bad and just admitting that it's just not to your taste, you know?
No, you said it sucked. You said the chain of dogs sucked and Coltane sucked. That's what you said.
We have it recorded.
You need to clean your ears, Ruthan.